Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining our space this evening. My name is Juliana Bitarbeo, and I will be moderating this conversation alongside my colleague, Portia Aloyo. The title of this conversation is Mental and Emotional Healing from a Spiritual Perspective. Now, mental health is a state of mental well being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, work well, and contribute to their community. It's become a subject of interest worldwide due to rising levels of stress related illnesses like depression, bipolar disorder, and anxiety attacks. Professionals from different disciplines have addressed these challenges from a medical perspective, and many people have been helped. However, there is a need to address these challenges from a spiritual standpoint and merge spiritual solutions with medical solutions for much better results. Now, today we'll be joined by three panelists, and we look forward to engaging in helpful discussions with the community and believe everybody will be blessed. Now, we'll be joined by Apostle Anthony Wanda Mhumuza from Amazing Grace Faith Church. He's the lead pastor there. We will also be joined by Dr. Nakalembe Miriam Ivudria, a medical doctor who will share from that perspective. And we will also be joined by Mr. Michael Biakabasa, who will be sharing his unique experience as a man facing mental health, dealing with mental health challenges from that perspective. Now, we want to invite you to drop your questions in the chat. We will at some point dive into them, but without further ado, please allow me to head straight into the conversation. And I want to start with Apostle Anthony Mhumuza. And Apostle, this question is to you. In what ways can spiritual practices contribute to mental and emotional healing, especially in the face of challenges like depression and anxiety?
Well, thank you, Juliana and NBS. Thank you so much for this space, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in at this particular time. Like Juliana introduced the subject, mental health is a discussion that has been going on at least for a while now. But it's also important to note that a lot of times it is addressed from a medical point and a psychological point of view. And so the solutions that have been offered always rotate around there. But then I realized as a pastor over a period of time that there are cases that are never resolved, uh, regardless of all the psychological and medical help that people receive. And these are cases that are related to, like I said, or like we said, spiritual causes of mental health. We also know that low key, especially here in Africa, when a person is dealing with mental health issues, especially when they get to a certain level, much as they may be dealing with them in from a medical view, visiting doctors and psychiatrists and all kinds of therapists. People tend to also sidebar and check out with witch doctors and the like. And sometimes situations get worse because people are trying to get help, but maybe they don't know that this can be solved from a spiritual standpoint. Now, in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, the Bible says, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So you notice that a sound mind is one of the things that God has promised to us as a blessing, even from the Bible. And so for me, it is from that standpoint that I started approaching mental health issues from a spiritual angle, dealing with the causes and addressing them spiritually. I remember one case, the first case I had was in 2014, when a certain lady came to me and said her husband or her fiancé at that time had actually run mad because of some bad news that they had received. So I asked to meet him, and indeed he came They came with him the following day. He wasn't like really mad, but of course he had been suspended from his job and referred to get psychiatric help. I remember sitting with him at a certain restaurant and listening to him, and I asked him a few questions. Of course, I couldn't connect 100% with his mind, but one thing I did is I wrote down certain things for him on a piece of paper. They were really scriptures and confessions. I have a sound mind. I'm not mad. I'm a child of God. I believe that I'll get well. And I told him, pin these things in your house, on your computer at work, and just keep saying them to yourself whenever you're in the right state of mind. Because every mad person has that moment when they regain their consciousness. Sometimes we may never know, but there is always that moment when they gain a little bit of consciousness. So I told him, whenever you feel yourself and you're in charge, these are the things I want you to be saying. Long story short, this gentleman was free in about a week's time. He went back to his office and he was admitted back. And he had one other case after a year of the same, but it's been about 7 years now, and he has never had that similar issue. And I believe that when I look at him, his children, his family, and his wife, I am always very sure that there's a lot of spiritual help that can be offered to many people who are probably confined in mental institutions and those who have gone on to be worse. So that is how I feel about this for the discussion, that it is important that for us as believers, but generally everybody out there, to know that God has not left this mental health issue unattended to. There are solutions that He has provided in His Word, and I believe through people. It may not be a pastor, but anyone that knows very well the Word of God and they know how to administer it. There are always solutions in there to help people gain back their emotional and mental sanity. I think that's it for now from me. Julia, over to you, Juliana.
All right. Thank you so much, Apostle. So we want to hear how individuals can effectively integrate the spiritual solutions that you've described with medical treatment so that we can have a holistic approach to mental well-being. Could you please expand on that?
Yeah, I've always believed like we don't have to substitute doctors or any medical professional to be able to get help from God, because I personally believe that doctors and the wisdom that they use in executing the help or giving out the help that they give, I believe that it's all given by God. And it's just that it may be limited in one way or the other. So we strongly recommend that people actually seek medical help whenever they are facing such kind of challenges. But along with that, they should also be able to seek spiritual help. And by spiritual help here, I mean help from God, not from any other source. And one should never be substituted for the other. And I believe that if people approach it like that, it will also determine what kind of doctors they go to, because sometimes you may go to a doctor that may make the situation worse because they may be medically equipped, but attitude-wise and understanding, they may push you further into the problem. That's why we looked out for doctors like Dr. Miriam, who are very strong in faith, but also very experienced at what they do, so that they can be able to give us a balanced view of how you can be a doctor, but also be able to show God to your people every time the challenges they are facing are beyond probably your medical knowledge and expertise.
Thank you very much, Apostle. You touched on it a little bit earlier on when you shared the story of that gentleman. You might choose to use that story, or maybe you can share any other success stories where this duality of approaches that you're describing have significantly improved someone's mental health.
Yes, I remember one particular incident. After he had been fined for like 2 years, he had a very he had a misunderstanding with the father. And I realized that even the first case, when he lost his mind, it was still a misunderstanding with the father. So he had a very sharp misunderstanding with the father this other time. And this time around, I couldn't access him from his office or home. So I had to go to Butabika now to be able to access him. So while we were in Butabika, of course, I talked to him, I talked to the wife. He was not violent. He had been given that injection. And so we started talking, and the wife told me, you see this friend of yours? All the medicine they're bringing, he's throwing it away because he says you told him that he is what? He is fine. So now, the wife was trying, of course, to convince me to tell him to take his medicine. And when I talked to him, I said, why are you not taking the medicine? Of course, he had the injection, but the one which was tablets, he was throwing it away and hoping they're not seeing him. So I said, why are you not taking the medicine? He said, you told me I am okay. So I want you to tell me whether I'm okay or not. So if you say I'm not okay, then I know you're one of them. And if you say I am okay, then why do I have to take the medicine? Of course, I was was in a fix. So of course I had to tell him that he is fine. And but I said, if they give you medicine and you take it, it won't take anything from you. Anyway, I don't know if I succeeded in making him take the medicine, but while we were there, I was also able to administer prayer to him and give him more scriptures to meditate upon, really scriptures that are related to a sound mind. And then, we prayed and did some other things. You say, what other things? We had Holy Communion with him. I told him in 2 days you'll be out of here, and he did. In 2 days he was out of there. It's now 5 years. He's a very sober man, very okay. Has had like multiple promotions after that, and he's a faithful church member. Yeah, so I thank God for that. And
Amazing story. Thank you for.
I wanted to add that the amazing thing is that because of the sensitivity of his story, most church members do not know that he has a story like that because it has always been between me and him, the wife, my wife, and one of his best friends. But the rest of the church members don't know that he has ever had a story like that.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Apostle. Now, we're engaging in this conversation. However, we do know that mental health issues are often stigmatized in religious communities, particularly. So, from your view, how can spiritual leaders and faith based organizations play a role in reducing the stigma and really encouraging open conversations about mental and emotional well being?
I believe it begins with such kind of platforms, being open and allowing people to open up. Sometimes you have to let these people who have overcome these things using both the spiritual and the medical to be able to speak up. I remember this gentleman I'm talking about has always wanted to share his story, but I kind of stop him because I know that some people may begin to look at him in a different way, especially when he does something that is out of order. But I think it's about time, like this coming glory camp, that I have allowed him to share his story because now it has been proven and tested. At least 5 years he has been okay. I remember a time I was somewhere at a crusade and we had a case of a mad person who said they had been prayed for and they got healed. And we bought them a suit and they were celebrating and everyone clapped. But the following day, the suit was dirty and he was rolling all over the anthill at the same crusade ground where we were. So I realized that when you're dealing with such cases, you need to give it some good time. Like I said, some good time to see that the person is actually fine, and then you can give them a chance to share. Today, also, we had one case of another lady who was suicidal, but she's free. She has shared her testimony. I think it's on the NBS platform, both Twitter and all the others. This one in particular was suicidal the time I met her. And right now, she is a mother of two. She's married. At that time, she was single. She was suicidal because she was addicted to drugs because of the things she had been through. But right now she's whole, and when we open up and allow them to speak, and then we learn from them, I will create platforms. We don't laugh at them. Oh, I didn't know you were like that. But actually, we look at their story and thank them for the boldness to share and to be vulnerable and to show that anyone can overcome. I think the way we overcome the stigma in a nutshell is that we must allow the conversation to go on without being judgmental and without silencing them. Because I remember a case of a lady who was always ashamed whenever the husband tried to talk about how he was mad, and God set him free. Because for her, she said, whenever you say that, people may think I'm married to a mad person. So you can imagine such a situation. The man wants to speak how he was delivered from insanity, and the wife is saying, I don't want to be seen as one who married a former mad person. So I think all these conversations should be opened up at all different levels, family, church, workplace, such that people are free to talk about their stories and journeys of deliverance so that many others can be helped. Now, when you talk about hospitals and from the medical standpoint, I think the government is doing quite a good job, governments all over the world, to create mental health awareness. I think about the merging, I don't think it can be something you can force on the government to include spiritual leaders in this exercise, because, as you know, spiritual business is hard to regulate. You might open up the discussion, and then the wrong people will definitely come in and make the bad situation worse. So I am open to advice from you all about what you think about what the governments and the spiritual institutions can do. But I don't think it's something that you can force in terms of policy. But I think it can be done at a sensitization and awareness level. I hope I did answer well, Juliana.
Yes, thank you very much, Apostle.
You're welcome.
I'll hand over to Portia now, who will be engaging with Dr. Miriam to get more of the other side, the medical perspective on this topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Portia Loyo, and I am the programs manager of Next Radio and Pulse Radio at Next Media. But I'm also very, very passionate about mental health. And let me just say this has nothing to do with the conversation, but Apostle, you have such an aura. I saw you when you came for the media tour at Next Media, and I was like, oh my God. What an incredible man. And I am so glad that you are in the championing of mental health, because it is very important. As a young
Thank you.
person, I relate to it a lot. And it means a lot that so many people are now speaking about something that seemed somewhat a taboo a couple of years ago. So I'm going to take you through a session with the amazing Dr. Nakalembe, who is new to Twitter. Please, let's go and follow her on Twitter. But yes, Dr. Nakalembe is a medical practitioner. She's a very serious woman. I was reading her CV and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing woman. And before we can dig deep into her understanding of mental health from the medical world and spiritual world, I will allow her just quickly introduce herself to us.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to come on this space and talk about mental health in spiritual perspectives. My name has been introduced. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gyne, Makerere University Medical School. I think that would be enough for us to save time, and I'm happy to be here and give the side of medical as well as combining with the spiritual. Thank you.
We are very, very glad and honored and happy to be here. Do remember you can share your comments, questions, or anything using the hashtag GloryCamp2024. So, Dr. Miriam, as someone in the medical field, maybe you can help us understand, how does mental unwellness conditions like depression actually affect people's well-being?
Yes, thank you. Just like any other illness in any other part of the body will affect someone's performance and well-being, so mental health does the same. We saw when we had the COVID pandemic how people were falling sick and the whole world was paralyzed because of that illness. So is mental health illness, that when somebody is mentally unwell, it will affect their performance, it will affect their interactions socially. Yeah, it's just like any other illness.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miriam. Now, in the world you're in and from your experience, there is a whole lot of growing interest, and Apostle was talking about this earlier, in integrating. So, traditionally, we have been using medical ways to treat mental wellness, but now there's a growing concern to integrate both spiritual and medical ways to improve patients' outcomes. First of all, what are your thoughts about that, and what challenges have you been facing in trying to meet mental unwellness by combining the two?
Okay, I'll start with the first part of things. Just like Apostle was saying, doctors are just an extension of God's hand. There are things in which medical science is limited. There are many illnesses where medical science is limited. And especially when you come to mental health, we see that depending on the level and the name given to the mental illness, we see that medical science is limited in providing permanent solutions. As many will testify, there are people who are on lifelong drugs, and once they get off like this, they get relapses. Now, how can we integrate? Unfortunately, Apostle knows this better. Spiritual things operate differently. They are not like you can't force it on anybody. It does not work at people's will, like thinking that, okay, fine, let me go buy a Panadol, take the headache goes. With spiritual things, you can't say, okay, let me go and get prayer, this will go. It doesn't work like that. There is a whole way of how the spiritual realm operates, and you can't contain it. You can't put it in a kind of operating mode that this is how it will operate. We can lay guidelines and say, okay, we have a mental health policy, we have mental health hospital, we have this. But unfortunately, with the spiritual, you can't do that. You can't say that now Apostles Church is going to become the hub of mental healing, because the person who is the power that's controlling that is beyond what man can control. So integrating and getting results, I am not so sure that it will just work like that. Given that it depends on a lot of other factors, the person has to be willing. Like Apostle says, the guy was willing to allow that solution to work on him, and you won't find that with everybody. And also we have to know that the spiritual realm is governed by two sides. There is the light side, there is the dark side. So someone may choose to operate with the darkness, and that may present different results. Somebody may decide to operate with the ways of the God of the Bible, and that may work different. I think that's all I can say about that.
Thank you, Dr. Miriam. I think later on we can also get a comment from Apostle in that particular topic. But if you look at the trends nowadays, there's a lot of stress. So many things cause us stress. Either it's work, our relationships, the economy. There's a lot of stress out there, and very many people struggle with coping. In your opinion, what would you say are the best coping mechanisms when it comes to dealing with stress today? Because it is one of the biggest causes of our mental unwellness.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Of course, life is full of that. Even Jesus said that in this world you will have trouble, but be strong. Where I'm going, I'm making room for you. So as long as you're born in this world, expect trouble, expect stress, expect ups and downs. expect bad news. Just that's the way the fallen world is. Once you agree with that, then the question is, when trouble comes to you, what do you do? Now, depending on the level of stress and what it has caused to your mental illness, wellness, depression of different levels of depression, stress, anxiety, and so on, there are some medical solutions which can help to a certain degree. There are counselors, professional counselors who can help you look at the challenge that's causing you stress, how you navigate, and help you to see that you're not alone in this world who is facing this. That is one. There are also things they may tell you, take a break. They may tell you do exercise, go do things you love. And depending on the level, there are also medications that can help ease anxiety, can help people sleep better if they're not sleeping well. That's from the medical perspective. Now, from the spiritual perspective, there are lots of solutions that are full in the Word of God. God promises He'll keep you in perfect peace when your mind is stayed on Him. Do not be anxious about anything. Cast your burdens upon the Lord. There is so much that you can't even finish if you go that line. Personally, I do not really encourage people to take anxiolytics, like drugs to help you calm your anxiety and sleep better. When I sense that you're a Christian and Bible believing, that's the route I will take, because I know this route will give you a permanent solution. You won't end up being drug dependent. You won't end up getting some of the side effects these drugs have. They are simple solutions. So I've had patients come in, and sometimes I've actually had to pray with them. And I've got reports back that, doctor, thank you for praying with me. I came with these pains I was not understanding, but after the session, so when I sense that the environment is good, I will encourage that side. When I sense that you're someone who does not want anything to do with the God of the Bible, because those are the solutions I know that work, we will go in the direction which will work for you, because God in His mercy put doctors, He put psychiatrists, He put counselors, He put therapists and so on, who can help people in all their different ways of belief systems, and that's okay. But as far as coping with stress and whatever, people just have to know that's the life we live in. We may not be able to deal away with stress all the time. It will come here and there, but it depends on where you want to find your solutions. They are there. Medically, there are solutions. Spiritually, there are solutions, but I personally encourage people, because I've also faced situations whereby maybe your patient is not doing well, and somehow you're anxious about that. So what I do, I pray for my patients. I put on, I always encourage my patients, if you can't sleep, put on YouTube, Sleeping with Scriptures. Let them play in your head. I encourage them to listen to worship music. It brings such a presence which can help you calm down, and you don't have to take that sleeping pill. But if you're the kind who may not work with those solutions, there are medical solutions which can also help to a certain extent. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Dr. Miriam, my name is Portia, and I love what you've said. I love how you relate to scripture. I think for me, one of my go-to is 2 Timothy 4:17, where it says, "But the Lord stood with me and gave me strength." And sometimes when we're going through life, we tend to forget that spiritual part and tend to run to modern medicines and medical things. I want to know from you, as a medical person, but also a person of faith, how do you think the spiritual and the medical solutions to mental unwellness can either complement each other or differ from each other?
Okay, so this actually depends on the doctor who is handling the situation. Medical, as Apostle was saying, that doctors are really agents of God to help. We do a lot of things, and sometimes I sit back and I'm like, okay, God, you really gave us privilege to be a point of help to the people to be a point through which you work to help people. There are so many things we solve. There is so much. When you look at the medicines we buy in the pharmacies, how people get to know this molecule will treat this molecule will. Many of us have fallen sick here and felt like, wow, am I going to face the next day? But the doctors have fixed us. We fix people. We do operations and surgeries, put someone to sleep for hours, and you work as long as you want, and then give them medicine to reverse that sleep, and they come out. So medical science is in no question a hand of God to help humanity. But just as you're asking, how do we integrate? It so happens that mental health is in a unique space whereby it's not in the physical body. Somebody is physically well, but their soul, their spirit has got an attack. So in that regard, medical science can help. God has provided drugs. You go, they inject you. If you're aggressive and beating up everybody, you calm down, you fall into a sleep and what. But realize that some of these solutions are limited in a way that God didn't intend that you're on these drugs that have knocked you out of your mind and you can't even function well. So there are levels where if you find yourself in that situation, now you seek for a higher solution. And those higher solutions are in God Himself. You may not find them in the medical world, even with the best of professors in psychiatry. I was sharing a story the other day that I came across a story on YouTube, a very painful story, where a very lovely lady took her life, had a loving husband, very supportive family, everything looked perfect. She was very brilliant, a professional, had loving children, and she had just been discharged out of one of the very renowned psychiatrist unit. I think it was about 2 weeks, and she committed suicide. So that shows you there is a level whereby this thing of mental health goes outside the hands of doctors, and we need to encourage people where we can. As I told you, that mental things are unique. You can't force it. Someone has to agree and accept and say, yes, I am opening my heart for this solution that's being suggested. So we can't say government should do this integration, and that is difficult when it comes to spiritual things. People have a choice to do that. Just like the government wants to force someone to go to hospital when they are sick in other parts of their body. So they can't force people to take the spiritual solution. It has to be someone is willing and open to accept spiritual solutions where the hand of man is limited. So I'll hand over to you, Portia.
I love that. And this would be something we quote. Someone must be able to accept spiritual solutions where the hand of man is very limited. Allow me appreciate every one of you who has joined the space today. I see a lot of people: Juliana Rogers, Ashaba, Joanna, Foxpro, Declaring. Thank you so much for joining the space. Do remember our hashtag is GloryCamp 2024. So if you have a comment, if you have a question, you can just go there to the comment section and we'll be able to see your comments and respond to them later. If you have anything you want Apostle or Dr. Miriam to respond to, they'll be able to do that at the end of the session. Dr. Miriam, as we conclude, and I love, and I've said this earlier, for you, you're both ways. You're a spiritual person, but you're also a medical person. I would want to know, in your opinion, how important is it for medical practitioners, for the other people in your fields, for the psychiatrists, the the counselors, everyone who deals with mental unwellness, how is important is it for them to also be open to the spiritual element of it? How is it important for them to collaborate with spiritual leaders in times when addressing mental unwellness?
Yes, the importance of that cannot be underscored. I mean, it will be the ultimate combination to find a psychiatrist or counselor or therapist or whatever, or doctor, just like in my field as a gynecologist taking care of women issues and so on, to also be endowed with the Spirit of God and the wisdom of the scriptures of God. That would be the best combination you can have to. But when that is not there, if the psychiatrist himself herself does not believe that demons can actually make someone mad, like we see in scriptures, I think in Matthew 8, where Jesus met the mad people who were in graves and nobody was able to chain them and whatever, and he cast out those demons and the people were well. He sent them to the pigs. Now when you find that the doctor themselves, they are not understanding that and they don't believe in that, and they actually water it down and laugh at it as if it's like it's something for people. I've had that happen to me, whereby some people came and said, someone was saying, how can a whole doctor at your level start saying you're praying for a patient? So you see, if you have those kinds of attitudes, it's difficult. However, just like we said, spiritual things cannot be forced. Someone has to accept them and rest in them. The doctors who are there and doing that, God bless them, because they are doing the powerful thing. You're doing what you know in medical science, but you're doing what you know medical science cannot sort, to take people beyond to the ultimate solutions, which I think would be very powerful. So, apostles' work to continue praying for us and praying for the people, preaching the gospel, because it's really the power of God to total liberation and liberty from all these bondages of mental illness and many other illnesses. Over to you, Pasha.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I request you to stay on because I'm seeing a lot of questions are coming and some are directed to you. Someone has actually said they want to meet you in person, but we shall get to that later. We are also joined by the very incredible Michael Yakavasa, and I will let Juliana take over. I'll be back later, but do remember that you can go and comment. Let us know what you're thinking. If you have a question, what you're feeling, use the hashtag GloryCamp2024, and we shall be able to respond. Apostle, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miriam. We shall listen in from Michael, and then we shall conclude later on. Juliana?
Thank you, Portia, and thank you, Dr. Miriam. We speak about integrating the two, and obviously you are a testament to that. So thank you very much for your perspectives. Now over to Michael. I'm just going to read his bio. Follower of Jesus Christ, husband, dad, CPA, MBA. So you already know the perspective that he is coming with. Just to set the stage, we know that men are less likely to be diagnosed with depression, but even more, almost 2 times more likely to die by suicide. Those are the global statistics. But of course, we know that those come from the global north. We obviously might have the same numbers or less because there is quite a stigma around it on the continent. Now, Michael, I want to take this conversation with you and understand the male perspective to mental unwellness and even mental wellness. So we know that men often face unique challenges when it comes to addressing these mental health issues. And from your perspective, as a believer, as a man yourself, as somebody who's surrounded by men, what do you think some of those barriers are that prevent men from seeking help? And how can we encourage more open conversations about that?
Thank you very much, Juliana. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. So
Loud and clear.
glad to be here. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Juliana. Thank you, Portia. Thank you, Dr. Miriam. Dr. Miriam, we meet once again in a forum like this. So happy to have you here. And of course, Apostle Anthony, and all of you who are part of this space. The question set for me is a good one, and I'm here to represent the point of view of men. I want to put this out there. Men are uniquely made, and indeed, the challenges that we face as men are unique. I feel like when the Bible says we are fearfully and wonderfully made, when it comes to a man, maybe they should have also said shockingly, because when you look at yourself, when I look at myself, the capabilities I have and what I feel I can do, and then I look at the responsibilities and the weight of the burden of the things that I'm supposed to achieve or to be as a man, you can only imagine what men are going through. It's like the weight of the whole world is upon their shoulders. But as we try to answer this question, which is really about the barriers preventing men from seeking help, of course, the key term there is men. One of the things we need to do is, first of all, define who a man is. So there are very many barriers. I can't list all of them, but I would say that they can be summarized in lack of knowledge. And lack of knowledge of what? Lack of knowledge of who a man is. There are so many things that we are told in the movies. You know, you look at a film star, you look at someone who's muscular, someone who's rich and seems to have it all and have it all together. You kind of tend to think that that's what a man is. But that's not what it is. So I would like to take the definition of what a man is and have it, if we can agree on what that is, then we can take the conversation further. And credit goes to Man Enough Kenya and Man of Honor Uganda, who I'm glad to be a part of. This is a group of men that I have been with for close to 7 years now. And they came in very, very handy at a low point in my life. And one thing they agree on is that a man has exactly 5 attributes. So as we define a man is defined by 5 things. One is initiative. Second one is responsibility. The other one is leadership. The fourth one is love. And the fifth one is legacy. So as we are defining who a man is, and then, we try to explain what are the barriers and what is stopping them from being open about the issues they're facing, to be specific, the mental and emotional challenges they face, we should understand that a real man is one who takes initiative. In other words, you don't wait around. If there's something to be done, you don't wait for the next person to do it. You don't sit back and say, oh, let the other person go, let the other person do it. So you always want to take initiative if you want to be a man. The other one is men live responsibly. As a man, there are certain things that you cannot let anyone do. Yes, society expects you to be responsible, but as a man, there are certain things that you're expected to do. For example, you're a husband, you're a father, or even just a son in a home. If it comes to payment of bills, if you're employed and you're probably still staying at home with your parents, one of those days you should sacrifice and say, let me take care of the bills today. If you're a husband, for sure, if you're a husband, you're the main provider in that home. So you're taking responsibility. About leadership is where it gets a bit tricky. We know that some of the leaders we know tend to be dictators, but the kind of leadership we are talking about that defines a real man is sacrificial in nature. And to this, we look to our Lord, Jesus Christ, who was leader. He was God himself, both God and man, but he sacrificed himself. He sacrificed his life for us all. So the third attribute that makes a man is leadership, but it has to be sacrificial leadership in order for it to qualify, to meet this definition of a man that we want to frame this conversation for. And then the fourth one has to do with the way that we love. A real man is not one who loves many women at once, So there's a word I want to use. I can't use it here, but I think, love nigga. A real man loves faithfully. He sticks to one woman, loves her in so many ways. So if you want to be a real man, you have to love that one woman faithfully. Then lastly, in the interest of time, there's also legacy. So after all is said and done, when you're gone and you've left this world, what are people going to say about you? Your family, those that got in contact with you. We have seen so many cases, and like I said, our definition of a man before, if it's from the movies and those that seem to have made it on the outside, we've gone for burials where when you're at the funeral service or you've traveled up country and you see you knew this man to be husband to one wife, but imagine your shock when you see another woman getting up, another family, and it's only then that you discover, you know what, hey, this man wasn't such a faithful man or such a man of integrity after all. So a real man works on leaving a legacy, a worthwhile legacy, so that even when he's gone, his record, his legacy is intact. Now, having said that, what would stop then such a man from seeking help if he has mental and emotional challenges? I would say one of the things is, like we said, a man takes initiative. So if you know you're having issues, you're disturbed, emotionally, you're mentally, then let's demystify this myth that real men, don't seek help. I want to say it here and say it categorically. Real men actually seek help. Real men ask for directions. And one of the things we say at Man of Honor and Man Enough is that men share their stories. Because one of the things, and maybe it's also another barrier, is that the enemy ensures that we live in isolation. He puts you in a corner and boxes you. It's like you're in a boxing ring and you're really cornered and you can't go anywhere. So isolation is one of those barriers. You keep to yourself. You keep thinking, oh, I'm the only one going through this. Even in this weird economy, the enemy might have you thinking, oh, you're the only one that's broke, that doesn't have money. So that isolation is not good. And for that, what's the solution to that? Is that if you can find a community of men, a community of brothers that are like-minded. The Bible speaking in Psalm 1:1 says, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners. So the flip side is that then if you can find people who are like-minded, who fear God, I think rather than isolate yourself, if you can find such a community, you're well on your way to finding help. So I would say that, once again, in wrapping up, that the biggest barrier is lack of knowledge. We've been given a wrong definition of who a man is. It's not what the movies say. It's probably not, what you've been told before. It's those 5 attributes of taking initiative, living responsibly, leading sacrificially, loving faithfully, and leaving a worthwhile legacy. If you can do those things, then, like we've said, that's a solution. If you can define who you are as a man, live up to those attributes, then there's nothing that will stop you from seeking help if you have mental and emotional issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate how you laid it out quite plainly about what is a man, and really highlighting some of the unique challenges that men face. Now, you touched briefly, and I want to expand on it a little bit. And that is the issue of vulnerability, and how vulnerability, especially amongst men, can be seen as a sign of weakness. And it really does help to push forward that stigma that surrounds mental health in many communities, and especially maybe the communities of men. Now, how can both our spiritual and our community leaders really help to reshape that narrative around, like you described, what it means to be a man, and further promote mental awareness and support in these communities? We'd like to hear from you on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Our leaders, both in the... Oh, I felt like there was an echo there. All right, so our leaders, both in the world and our spiritual leaders, can help us, one, by leading by example, by being vulnerable themselves. You see, we tend to look up to the leaders and we think they're invincible, we think they're stars, they're all that. But if they could lead by example and show us their vulnerable side, if they can be open, if they are going through issues, and maybe then they could preach a sermon about what they're going through and how they're dealing with it. But just that leading by example to show that, a man can actually be vulnerable, then us, their followers, can easily do the same. Apart from that, I would also say through maybe advocacy. One, if it's church, it's a church setting, for example, and then they can have time in their church timetable to have a sermon about mental and emotional health. I do remember at Amazing Grace Faith Church last year, we had a series on mental and emotional health, which really helped a lot of people, as I recall. So one is through advocacy, that is telling their people about, real life. And again, at Man of Honor, we say we are real men before a real God with real issues. So as leaders, if they can confront this issue, because it's out there, men are going through mental and emotional challenges. So if our leaders can actually talk about it, and then, of course, being leaders, if they can help us, their followers, seek help of experts, or referring us to doctors, such as the incredible Dr. Miriam. Yes, as they're handling the spiritual side of things, if it's a church setting or if it's a work setting, you're a boss there and you've spoken to this person, you're mentoring them. If you could refer them to an expert, a counselor, I believe that can also help. As a leader, that can help your people. But I think above all, also, it goes back to demystifying these myths around men. Myths like men don't cry, men don't ask for directions, all men are dogs. None of those things are true. And if we could hear these and see these things from our leaders, that would really help to demystify these myths. And then the truth is, yes, a real man can actually be vulnerable, and that's the only way he's going to get helped. So in the church setting, if we could have more men fellowships, actually right now I see, most churches seem to have these fellowships coming up, and it's it's demand driven, because men are having issues. So one response should be that in a church setting, there should be men fellowships. Again, from the pulpit, there should be someone talking about what the man is going through. And then as our leaders try to help us, there's also the issue of confidentiality. No one wants to share what they're going through with their pastor or with their boss at work, and then they find their business out there. So if men are open to you as a leader, don't go and shout their issues from from the mountaintop or from the pulpit. So confidentiality is also another thing that our leaders can help us with. Then another mantra that we live by in the group of men that I'm part of, it has an acronym, SLEEK. So SLEEK stands for service, loyalty, integrity, courage, and knowledge. And those are things which, if our leaders can have us live by, for example, if as a man you're encouraged to serve in whatever capacity you to use your skills and talents to serve God, to serve others, that's a really good thing for any man. Loyalty, that's an attribute. Integrity as well. Courage. So courage is really pertinent if you're talking about mental and emotional health. Many of us live in fear of the unknown. We've been told, and like I said, yeah, they are myths. But if you have the courage to stand up to, what you've been told and try and change the narrative, if you can just step out there. Already we've quoted 2 Timothy 1:7. The Lord has given us a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. It takes courage to do some of these things, even just to share your story. Apostle Anthony shared that there's a man with a very powerful testimony. I look forward to hearing that testimony. I know if indeed he does share, it's going to take a lot of courage, because the stigma that comes with sharing. So I think that is it. But the last one would be knowledge as well. Our leaders can help give us knowledge and make it easy for us to access trainings, or I don't know, anything that can be helpful to do with mental and emotional health. And of course, anyone out there that is having issues, there's Glory Camp coming up. We are going to tackle these issues. So that is already one way that our church is trying to help the community, because we know that these issues are real. So please come and be part of Glory Camp 2024. We shall take this discussion further. Thank you so much, Juliana.
What an answer. Thank you so much, Michael. I do want to quickly say we are very close to the top of the hour. We hope you'll give us just a few extra minutes. This has been such an exciting, impactful, and informative conversation. I hope you'll agree with me. So please do give us a few minutes to wrap it up appropriately. Now, Michael, you have touched on some very, very big issues and some very important issues as well. And one of them is highlighted in, of course, 1 Corinthians 10:13, that the temptations you face in life are no different from what others experience, right? And so there we can understand that sharing our experiences and being a part of community can really help to tackle both stigma, but also give solutions to people who are facing issues with their mental health. So I know you've touched on quite a bit the group that you're in with these amazing, supportive, like-minded men. From your experience, what role can those communities and your male peers and mentors and spiritual communities as well, what role can they play in supporting men who are struggling with their mental health? And how can we go on to create those safe spaces for men? There are a number of young men who are on our space today, and they would probably benefit from hearing a little bit about that. So if you could just expand on that for us, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As I expand on that, I'll try and be as quick as possible, as brief as possible. So let me put this out there. Every David needs a Jonathan, a peer, a comrade in arms, someone that you can share your life journey with. Every Timothy needs a Paul. That is someone who will mentor you, show you the way, encourage you, speak sense to you, show you what roadblocks to avoid. So now, as we talk about community, whether it's workplace, church, or community, one way that we can be helped by our peers and the community that we are part of is by encouraging. They encourage us and facilitate beneficial male friendships. Like I've already mentioned, David, Jonathan, if we can have that sort of thing encouraged in our wherever we are, that would be very, 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 very beneficial. Someone knows that if I'm going through something, I can share with a friend. That this person I can call up anytime. They'll talk. I'll be able to talk to them about this issue. That can really be helpful. So each man here, I encourage you to find that, if you're a David, that Jonathan that you can speak to about anything. Then if we can also have the older men take on younger men to mentor them, to speak with them out of the experience, share with them the obstacles, the barriers that they had while growing up. I feel like if these communities can give us older men to mentor us, that can really be beneficial. This third one is very, very dear to me. And we need to learn to celebrate men. We need to learn to celebrate men. There's a very glaring example that is worldwide. You all know about Women's Day. It is glorified. It is broadcasted from the mountaintops. Everyone knows that day. There's a lot of noise made about it. Father's Day, there's a lot of silence. In Uganda, it's on a different day from other countries. There's a lot of confusion. So men are not celebrated enough. So community, people, church, workplace, help us celebrate those men. If Father's Day is coming up, if it's their birthday, if it's there's any achievement that they've, anything they've achieved, celebrate them. Celebrate them. That will really, really, really help us. And then once we're getting into the issues of, mental and emotional health, as we share with you what we are going through, our challenges, it takes a lot for a man to share. Don't be judgmental. The Bible says, judge not that you may not be judged. But Christians are so quick to to judge. It's like it's inbuilt. It's like we can't help it. We may be quiet and don't say what we want to say, but in our mind, to be honest, we judge quite a lot, and that needs to change. Let's stop judging men, because you think they should be this and they're not that. Let's not be judgmental as a community. Then also, as we get to, trying to seek help from you, we said men should be open, they should share their stories. We should learn to keep a secret. We talked about confidentiality. There's a story I know, as my father told me, the story of King Midas, who was a king who had, for some reason, he developed donkey ears. And the only person he could tell was his barber, because, at one point he needed to go and get a haircut. Unfortunately, when he told the barber kept it for some time, but then finally, I think he went to a forest or did something, and he thought, that if he was in the forest, no one would hear. So the guy went and shouted, "Oh, the king has donkey ears." The next day in town, that was the story of the day. I don't know how people got to know, but if we share our issues with you, mental, emotional, whatever it is we are going through, please don't broadcast it. Keep it to yourself. And I think that's one of the things, like in any counseling, if you're a counselor and if you go for to counseling school, we are taught to keep that confidentiality and learn to keep secrets. Maybe as we wrap up, is also learning to use the appropriate language. In the community, we hear things like words like mad Words like he ran crazy, ran berserk. I think there's more appropriate language that you can help us use. Maybe like the topic we have today, you can talk about mental health or wellness rather than call someone mad or crazy. I think that is a rather put off. So if we can have more appropriate language, that would also help. Community can help us do that. Lastly, I could also say if, and especially this may work in maybe a work environment or even in church, you can also help put up a creed by which the men in your organization or community can live by. I'll give you an example of what we have at Man of Honor. One is we keep time, we pay our bills, we share our stories. I already touched on that. We keep our promises, very important. And then lastly, we leave no man behind. So that's really the mantra, that's a creed that we live by. And as a community, as a band of brothers, that has kept us together for all these years. And at a larger level in church, Uganda at large, worldwide, if we all live by a certain creed, similar to what I've just shared, that would really be helpful to us as men. I want to thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. We're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Some very powerful insight there. One major takeaway is that communities are built by ourselves. So if we can do the work to make sure we create those safe spaces, then we will be able to allow men to benefit from them. Thank you very much for your perspectives. Thank you for sharing. I want to hand over now to Portia, who can help us close out this, what has been an incredible conversation.
So when I was previously asked to host the space, I didn't think it would be more beneficial to me than to even the people listening. And I am so glad I made the decision today to be a part of this space. And as we conclude, I will start with you, Michael. I love how passionate you are about men, and I am curious because now I want to tell all the men I know to, live by the simple codes, pay their bills, do the right thing, and leave no man behind. And I do hope that also we can use social media to reach out to people because the reality is it is the platform that everyone uses today. I didn't know about these groups, but now I'm inquisitive and I want to know. Michael, as you say goodbye to us, invite us for Glory Camp 2024.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. Like I've already shared, there was little time, yet there's a lot to really talk about. So as we prepare for Glory Camp, I want to invite especially the men. I can't count how many are here. Yeah, but you're many. I want to invite each one of you. Please come. Let us be part of Glory Camp 2024 taking place in October. And please do stay tuned into NBS and their partner companies are they are partners in this Glory Camp 2024. There will be a lot of information shared on their testimonies, our stories. So there's a lot that's going to be shared during Glory Camp 2024. I want to personally invite you, if you're a man out there, please come and talk to me. Let's exchange numbers, exchange contacts, and let's do life together. So I look forward to seeing every man here at Glory Camp 2024 taking place in October. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael. It has been such a pleasure having you. Again, your passion is everything. And like he said, NBS will be the media partner for this, so we'll definitely be there. For you, Dr. Miriam, as we say goodbye, there was a question that came for you, and I wanted you for that to be your parting shots. Someone on the chat section was talking about wanting to see you and how he can access you, which is a common thing. A lot of people are suffering from mental unwellness, but they do not know where to go. Maybe you can respond to this as a spiritual person, but also as a medical personnel.
Okay, for the person who would like to see me, I think I'm happy to see them and help where I can. And Apostle knows where to find me and has my complete contacts. I think I'm okay with that. I'm glad to share. And the other part of the question was, kindly repeat.
As a spiritual person, because they want to see you, I'm guessing, as a medical person. Do you have a comment for them also as a spiritual person? Maybe a church they should visit, or should they see a pastor?
All right, I can help them. I can help them because they didn't elaborate what their issue is and whatever. I can start by listening to them, and then we'll channel them appropriately, because I know the experts who can help. I know the pastors who can help. So I think I can see the person first and I can advise.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Miriam. And I know that they were talking about men, but it gives me such joy to know that there's such a powerful woman out there championing this cause. And finally, Apostle Muhumuza, I think what you are doing is phenomenal, bringing people together. I've actually had a couple of people reach out to my inbox, and I have been invited for service on Wednesday at 6:30, so I'll definitely be there. But as someone who is spearheading this and leading a whole community of people for the Glory Camp 2024, I will keep your parting shots open.
All right, praise the Lord. Thank you so much, Portia. Thank you, the NBS team. Thank you, Amazing Great Faith Church team. Thank you so much, Dr. Miriam, for sparing time off your busy schedule. And thank you, wonderful people who took just 1 hour, I think over 1 hour, to listen into the conversation. I know that there are many things that were not addressed. Some of you would have loved to say something, and maybe the time couldn't allow, but we'll be doing this again next week, I think, on IG Live for NBS, and then another Twitter space in about 2 weeks. So there will surely be an opportunity to interact with you. But as we part, I just wanted to thank all of you for taking time to tune in. We would surely have loved to hear from you and to also hear your contributions because time will not allow us. But I want to pray for you, that God will bless you and that God will strengthen you, and whoever is facing any mental health issues, that God will give you peace, He will give you solutions, He will reveal Himself to you, and that His word will make sense to you. And I pray that anyone here that is being challenged and also needs extra help, that you're able to locate the right kind of people in your environment, in your surrounding. We want also to invite you for Glory Camp 2024, which is October the 2nd to the 5th, and the celebration service on 6th. We deal with these issues in detail. We have different platforms for men, for women, for married, for youth, different workshops for the business and working community. All the information you can find on the NBS pages. And we are sure that God is going to help us on this issue of mental health and many others. God bless you, and thank you once again. God bless you. Amen.
And we all say amen, amen. I don't think we should say anything after that. Thank you so
Amen.
much
Bless
for joining
you.
the space. Until next time, be blessed.